How's it going, YouTube and my future self? This is Will back here with another video, and today we're going to be talking about how to create motivation. I've read some stuff, some books that I'll share with you, and I listened to a podcast by Lex Fridman with Pavel Durov that really got me thinking about how certain ways that I've kind of lived my life have created all sorts of ways to craft motivation that you might not have thought about or overlooked because of the way that society tells us to live. So in this video, I'm going to go over a couple of things. So the first one that I highly recommend everyone pick up or read is this book. This book is called Flow, and I'm not going to pronounce the person's name that wrote it, but it's a psychologist that wrote this book, and this book is phenomenal. I read this book on my trip to Morocco, Spain, and Greece that I did a couple weeks ago, or a couple months ago at this point, and I absolutely loved it. It talked about how you can basically try and live the optimal experiences through life by constantly pursuing what many refer to as a flow state. And so for those of you that are familiar with that term, or for those that aren't, finding a flow state is essentially getting to that place where you're doing something, whether that be work or a hobby or spending time with friends and family, or really anything in your life that you can be fully invested into, and life just kind of flies by in that you're not paying attention to the time, you're not really thinking about external stressors or anything, you're fully engaged in whatever it is you're doing, and that's basically flow state. And so I'm sure many of us have experienced this in various moments. I've experienced this at work, I've experienced this in Pokemon, sometimes I've experienced it in the gym, and what the book is trying to tell us to do is to, instead of thinking about this stuff as a flow state that we kind of get through pursuing those things, trying to live our entire life as a flow state. And there's ways to do that. Cutting down on distractions so that we don't constantly have things taking our attention, such as television or our cell phones or other stuff like that. Being fully present and engaged when we're in the moment with friends and family, and our day-to-day life, finding pleasure in the simple things, and also creating routine and discipline around the things that we do, as sometimes, as the book points out, having laws that kind of govern how you live actually ends up creating simplicity and the ability to do things for a long stretch of time. And so when we're talking about motivation, I often kind of come across people that say they want to do something, whether that's start a business or they want to get into shape or they want to get promoted at work or something like this. But then time and time again, motivation seems to be the common factor that isn't going to get them there. So you've probably had a friend who has said, you know what, today's the day I'm going to start losing weight. And then you guys go out to dinner and you're like, hey, what happened to losing weight? And he goes, that starts tomorrow. I've done that many times throughout my life, kind of through my fitness journey. And what really ended up happening was kind of taking a day and starting and then just continuing to pursue losing weight over time. And then every time I would kind of knock myself down or need to get back up, I knew that because I had created like a system of rules and almost laws that I live by, I would not deviate from that structure that I set up. And ultimately, if you follow that over time, then the result that you want to achieve is likely going to happen. Humans are capable of doing some pretty incredible stuff. And I find time and time again that really actively putting your mind into the thing that you're trying to achieve and relentlessly pursuing it ends up actually getting you what you want. And I'm not talking about this from like kind of a lackadaisical way. I mean, seriously, if you put your full effort into something, odds are you'll probably realize it at some point. And I know that's a gross oversimplification, but that's kind of my experience. And so what was interesting about this podcast that I listened to by Lex Fridman with Pavel Durov, who is the CEO of Telegram and a Russian Facebook site called TK and some other information, really interesting guy. The way that he lives his life is semi-similar to mine. It's a bit more extreme on his side, but he's super into health and fitness. He's in this podcast talking about doing 300 push-ups and 300 squats a day. He doesn't drink, which I don't drink either. He, doesn't do caffeine. He doesn't do coffee. He, eats a very healthy diet. He has almost no social media, even though he's a CEO of one of the biggest kind of global communication platforms in the world, which is Telegram. And so it's so interesting because he was pointing out all of these things, saying that the reason that he doesn't participate in any of these things is kind of a couple of reasons. The first one being all of those things take away our time and ability to focus on the things that really matter to us. And it takes away thinking time and the ability to think critically about all sorts of stuff. And so what he was trying to point out is, if you have the news and other things constantly taking your attention, or TV, or your phone, odds are you don't have time to kind of think about things critically and then apply yourself to whatever it is that you really want to get out of life. The second thing that he was kind of talking about is how powerful the brain is, and that certain things such as drinking or drugs or caffeine or other basically stimulants and mind-altering substances like hinder the mind's ability to find motivation, pursue discipline, and all this stuff. And so I found these things really, really interesting, as they're ways that I have lived my life, and I've constantly found that the real way to kind of find motivation is to put yourself fully into something, make a commitment to the fact that you're going to achieve this outcome no matter what it takes. And even when you kind of lose motivation or get knocked down, continuously pursuing that outcome. And so, this is a great way to, I think, live life, and what Flow, the book, would suggest is this is the optimal way to live life, which, this is different for every single person. But I think the takeaway for the viewers is that motivation comes from within. And, by setting things up around you that simplify your life, you end up giving yourself more time to think critically about all sorts of stuff if you can really, really put your attention to the things that it is you are trying to achieve. And so by doing this and creating structure, and by creating discipline about pursuing whatever it is you're trying to do, you almost create motivation to go do those things, and you won't give yourself excuses to not do it. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you all next week. See ya.